So, how's everybody doing? All right, all right. Everybody's having a good time so far, I bet. We are too. The title of this session is Develop Visually Stunning and Personalized Lightning Communities. I'm Ted. I'm an engineer with Salesforce. I've been here about 6 years, most of the time in the Communities Cloud, and I'm actually based out of our lovely Paris office.
Hi, I'm Shipra, working as lead engineer in Communities Cloud at Hyderabad, India.
Great. So, let's see. Surprise, surprise. So this essentially just, it's just saying that please don't make any purchasing decisions based off of stuff we say we're working on or we claim that we're working on. Only really make any buying decisions based off of what's available today in winter 18.
Agenda of today's session is community theming, dynamic theming, and CMS Connect. Ted will be talking next about theming.
So before we get started, just wanted to thank everybody, thank all of our customers, all of our partners. I'm kind of living the engineering stereotype, just working out of a dark room all the time. So it's really nice for me to be here at Dreamforce and talk to everybody. And it's really crazy how everybody's using our product and all the amazing ways everybody's using our product. So I just want to say that a lot of the stuff we're going to show today is because of you, and really, thank you. All right, so with that out of the way, let's talk about community theming. So I actually announced theming last year at Dreamforce, and we went into a little bit more depth. We talked about some of the architecture behind it. We talked about some of the reasoning behind the design patterns, best practices, that type of stuff. Today we don't have as much time, so I'm going to do like a quick recap of what you can do with theming, what it's all about. I'm going to show some code, and we'll talk about a little bit about some of the features that we've added since then. So how many people are using community theming today? All right. It's more than I expected. So it's actually, not a lot of people are super familiar with it. It's actually, it's pretty powerful, as you'll see. How many people are actually familiar with personalization, branding type options in the community builder? Right, so a little more. Okay, cool. So you'll get something out of this session. So we've all seen this before. This is a Salesforce community. When you see this, you're like, yep, that's a Salesforce community. Most of the things you see here don't really change a lot. So as you can see, we have the same size logo, kind of always towards the top, floated left. But actually, some people have done some really good skins with this, and you can actually customize this quite a bit. So if we look at some of our skins here for some of our other communities that we have right now, they look all right. They look pretty good. Primarily, the layout is the same, but we've been able to do some branding, change some images, add some full bleed backgrounds, that type of stuff. So with theming, what we really want to do is just really open this up and allow for much deeper customization. So theming can actually be really kind of complicated. You have, it's not just CSS, right? We can do a lot with CSS, but whenever you start pulling in dynamic components, page level variations, components that other people wrote that you're using in App Exchange, it becomes more of a hierarchical difficulty. So what we really wanted to do here was just build theming based off of something that you're already super familiar with, and that's our Lightning platform. So the idea about themes is that they were built from the ground up on the Lightning platform. And just, you'll see, I'll go through the code, and you'll see it's just a Lightning component like any other. The one thing that I really like is that themes can be packaged and delivered over App Exchange. So in the same way that you can package a Bolt solution or an individual component and get it on AppExchange, you can do the same with themes. So imagine you're on the AppExchange, you're like, wow, I really like this indigo theme, it looks really cool. I want my community to look like that. Boom, you can just download it and install it with one click. Another thing about themes is that we're actually building on top. So it's not just a color scheme. We really want to open it up for extensibility. We always kind of run into this dilemma. Do you build multiple themes with one option, or do you build one theme with multiple customizations? And we're trying to lean towards the latter, just because they allow developers to do more things with them. And I'll talk about those in a little bit too. So let's just hop right in the community builder. Let's not restart our computer. Okay. So this is our community builder. And this is, oh, sorry, what's, How about that? All right. So yeah, so we're looking at our community builder, and this is a Capricorn coffee community. We've done a little bit of customizations here. It's not entirely attractive. In all fairness, I didn't want to make it really pretty because I wanted to show the difference to theming. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. I'm going to go to Settings and Theme. There's a Theme tab. And let's go ahead and change our theme for the home page. So we'll do that now. And this is going to refresh, but it actually didn't update because our theme has some custom code in it, which says, oh, okay, only use this theme for guest users. So in order to show that, I'm going to open up a incognito window as an unauthenticated user, and we'll just go to our community. So as you can see, this is just by applying the theme, we're actually able to show and have a much more rich branded experience, right? This is a lot more compelling for somebody that's just showing up to your site. Guest users are people that do not have authenticated access. So these are people that could be arriving at your community from search engine results or just a link that somebody sent them or anything. So it's really important to have a nice, rich experience. We can go in, mouse over the tabs. So let me show you what this looks like. So we're looking at, this is our theme components. So this is a Lightning component, which is the base structure for our theme. And you notice at the top, we implement an interface called Force Community Theme Layout. The interface doesn't have any methods. It's just essentially a marker interface, which tells the community that this is to be used in a theme. And if we look, you'll see that at the top we have a bunch of regions here. And we know that it's a region because it's typed as an Aura component array. And this essentially is like saying, okay, this is a placeholder where you can put multiple components in it. And that's why it's an array. And communities interprets that as a region. And what does a region mean? A region is an area in your template where you can drag and drop components into it. So you might have locked regions of your template, and you might have regions where you want to open up for extensibility and say, okay, I want to allow people to add their own custom components to this part. Down here, what we're seeing here is just your markup, just a bunch of divs with classes that we style in the CSS of our component. And right here is essentially where we just inject those regions. Okay, so we're saying this is where that region gets placed. Another interesting thing that we'll see down here is our v.body. This is kind of a confusing concept. But it essentially means that the body is, if you think of your theme as a template, so imagine like sidebar and then a header, and this is what doesn't change from page to page, right? So this is kind of like, if you apply this to multiple pages, it's gonna be the same on every page. But where we inject our v.body, this is the body of our page. So this is actually where the content of your page is gonna change from page to page. So yeah, so important to distinguish that. And then as you can see, we can add some expressions here to do this sort of custom behavior that I talked about. There might be better ways, better practices to do this, but for this demo, it just sort of demonstrates that you can have custom expressions. You get everything you can do in a regular Lightning component in a theme. Now, we talked about theme APIs. So I'm just going to demonstrate real quick kind of what we mean. So if you look at those three attributes, those are regions, just like the others, except that these are special because they're reserved and they're documented as being reserved regions, where if you include these in your markup, and you include these regions in your theme, it means that people can actually just go in and swap components out in them. It means that those regions are locked. You can't drag and drop any components you want in there. They're only good for the components in that, or that you want for that region. So because we declare search, we can go back to our theme, and now we see a little drop down here that says search component. And that's gonna let us swap out that search component or let other people swap out the search component for anything they want. But it has to be denoted as a search component, and this is all documented pretty heavily. So yeah, so that's kind of what we talk about when we say theme APIs. And yeah, and let me see, is there, so like I said, we have our CSS file. This is all our CSS for our theme. And we have our design file. So a design resource, if somebody's not familiar with design resources, it's essentially a file that's specific to a Lightning component bundle that allows application builders to understand what types of properties can be changed on here. So I can actually add a checkbox to this file. I can add drop downs. I can add all kinds of things. And in the same way, whenever you go and you edit a component and you have component properties over here, those properties will be displayed under here. So that's more of what we're talking about. Theme APIs, really just sort of allowing people to add extra customization to their themes, allowing these themes to be more reusable, because that's important, right? You don't want to be just building themes all day. It's like what I do. Cool. So let's hop back to our slides. Great. These are out of order. Well, sorry, Shipra. Okay, here we go. So we talked about building rich experiences, and we talked about how to make these pages look amazing, how to take the Capricorn Cafe community and make it look as beautiful as it did with that full background. But how do we actually deliver these experiences to the right people? And furthermore, how do we add variation inside these experiences based off of the type of person that's viewing your site? We've talked a lot about customer communities, we talked about partner communities, employee communities, just random dudes who just stumble on your website. It's important that you deliver the right experience to these people, right? So that's where dynamic theming comes in, and that's really where our audience platform shines. Is anybody familiar with the audience platform? Cool, so the guys that worked on it and a couple on this side. Great. So great, audience platform is really powerful. I really like it. So just a couple data points here. What can you customize based off the audience platform? So before we had branding sets, we actually had a single branding for your entire community. Now you can have multiple branding sets for your community and target them based off of the audience that's viewing your site. Page properties. So controlling page access rights, SEO properties, even the page title, these can all change depending on the audience. And theme properties, of course. So having a different theme depending on your audience. One thing we're working on now is component level variation. So actually taking this down to the component level. So being able to say, okay, if this component would not be visible, or this component has different attributes depending on the audience. And when to actually customize those things. So geolocation and user profile have been available for a while, since the audience platform was released. But what's new for winter 18 is domain and user object. So geolocation. So we can say, okay, if you're visiting us from China and it's Chinese New Year's, well, we can present a special branding set or a special theme just for those people visiting from that, for those localizations. User profile, so depending on the type of user, the license of the user visiting your site, the authentication, and then domain. What websites? If you set up custom domains for your community, then you can actually say, okay, if I access the site via this domain, then use this theme or any of those data points that are on the left. And then user object. User object is really powerful because you can change the entire experience based off of fields on the user object. So I'll show that working. So if we go into our branding, I know, do you mind getting my charger?
The slideshow is still going.
What's that?
The slideshow is still going.
Ah, okay. Let's see. End show. Okay. Great. So here we see the branding properties for your site on the left side, the branding palette, which we always had available. Now, if we go into here, we can actually click on Manage Branding Sets, and we can see that there are multiple branding sets for the community. So think about this, Capricorn Cafe, it's starting to get super popular because we're just demoing Capricorn Cafe all the time, and now they want to launch some sub-brands. So they have a new sub-brand for, let's say, Verona, and it's more targeted towards sustainability and ethical coffee growth, that type of thing. And then Murata Cafe, I don't know, maybe they're trying to sell more coffee to kids or something. I don't know, maybe it's probably a bad idea. So if we switch our page variation here to our white labeled version of the page, we're gonna get a little bit of a different look and feel. Okay. And this is our Verona branding set. We can switch back to the Capricorn branding just by clicking there. We can preview it inline. Or we can view Murata. As you can see, the only thing we've really changed are their branding values, so just colors and logos and stuff like that, and fonts, but it's gone a long way to really provide a different experience, right? Now, how do we target those? Let's look at the audience settings for these. You'll see we have a bunch of audiences already set up. We have one for Murata customers. And if we go in there, we can see that we have the Murata Community Cafe domain set for this audience. And so let's just see what that looks like. Let's go to Murata Community Cafe. And automatically this branding set got served up. If we go to Verona Community Cafe, it's the exact same community, I promise, no demo magic. We get the Verona branding and the Verona experience. And this is all based off of just a domain. Adding custom domains to your site, same community, same everything, but completely different experience. And all of this can be pivoted off of, in this case, it's just domains, but you can pivot off of all the things that I said, a user object, all the fields. I mean, there's a lot you can do here. So that's it. Shipra's going to talk a little bit about CMS Connect and the power behind that. There you go.
Thanks, Ted. That was a great introduction on theming. How many of you have heard about CMS Connect? Cool. Quite many. So CMS Connect is a new feature which was launched in summer 17, and it helps to bring content from external content management system into Salesforce community in a secured and performant way. We provide support for leading CMS providers like Adobe Experience Manager, Sitecore, STL, WordPress, to name a few. And the good part is design is generic enough to render content from any other similar CMS provider. So, okay. I'm excited to share a success story of our customer Honeywell, where using CMS Connect, they are able to get content like this header, footer, contact support banner in Salesforce community from their website, which is this, built on Drupal, which has a similar looking header and footer. Just to mention it again, like these, though they are looking similar side, they are two different offerings. This is their corporate website, and this is their Salesforce community. So content from external CMS system can be reused in communities, retaining the branding experience and look and feel of the website. And CMS Connect feature helped our customer Honeywell save development cost and time significantly. And they were able to deliver ahead of their planned time, as these integrations have become quite easy with CMS Connect. Moving to the presentation slides. We have built two types of connectors, CMS Connect HTML and CMS Connect JSON. Using CMS Connect HTML, you can bring in any pre-rendered HTML web content into communities, and content is rendered via URLs, so any content having CORS enabled is brought real-time client-side into communities. Architecture is based on HTML and HTTP standards, and it's a generic architecture and not based on a specific provider. The way it works is in CMS setting, you provide the public CMS server information, and during client-side rendering, XHR call is done to get the content. The HTML connector also has support for rendering personalized content from Adobe Experience Manager, and that is done by exchanging client context between Salesforce and Adobe Experience Manager. Coming to CMS Connect JSON connector, it helps to bring content from external CMS system like blogs, articles, news, product, etc. using JSON API, and they are rendered in communities using pre-built layouts. So we provide best-in-class presentation capability for building the UI for it. Okay, so moving to the demo for CMS Connect. This is a corporate site of coffee company Capricorn, which I'm going to use for the demo. It has the header, few banners, and then a footer. Imagine the company has a Salesforce community and they wanted the same look and feel of the website to be available in communities. This is a Salesforce community, and as you can notice, it has the header, footer, and the banner, the coffee banner, the product banner from the corporate site. And this is all done using CMS Connect HTML in few simple steps. Let me show you how the setup for it is done. So community workspace, if you are familiar with it, a new tile called CMS Connect is added that helps you manage the CMS connections. For the Capricorn side, I have created a connection called Capricorn AM. And in the CMS source, select the CMS provider that you're using for your CMS system. And if you're using any of the CMS providers not listed in this pick list, you can use the other option. And like we have a customer using it for Django CMS. So takeaway is the design is generic enough for you to use any CMS provider that support the HTML component rendering. In server URL, provide the host name of the CMS provider. And for security reasons, we only support HTTPS servers. In the root path, provide the directory in which the components are stored on your CMS server. And this path is relative to the server URL. For CSS and JavaScript, it's for the first time that we provide a way of getting external JavaScript and style sheets associated with the HTML component in communities, and it is done in a secured way using Locker service. And Locker service, if you might be aware, it's a powerful security features for Lightning components, and it helps to prevent the component from causing any excesses or security issue to the system. So click on Add CSS, provide the CSS URL, and we recommend providing a CSS scope name. Similarly, provide the script URL. And we also support localization, so you can define a mapping between CMS system and Salesforce language, and your content will be displayed in multiple languages. So an English user will be seeing an English content, a French user will be seeing a French content, depending upon the user locale. So once the setup is done, you need to go to the community builder for branding and personalizing the community. In a community template page, there are essentially three regions where, or ways where a CMS Connect HTML connector can be used. One is the header, the second is footer, and third is a Lightning component. To set the header and footer, go to the builder setting. There is a CMS Connect node, and select the CMS source that you defined in workspace. Provide a header path, and similarly provide a footer path for footer, and immediately the content shows up as header and footer of the community. Reason we have a separate setting for header and footer is for load order optimization, so that header and footer is loaded ahead of any other content in the page. And there is a CMS Connect HTML Lightning component exposed in component panel. And you can drag and drop, you can drag and drop the component in whatever section where you want to show the content. For example, I'm adding the component in content section. Okay, so once the component is added, you need to select the CMS source, which is Capricorn AM in this case. And let's say that I want to bring this coffee banner in community. So you need to provide the path for it, which is banner.html in this case. And the component shows up immediately in the community. Now, let's say that we want a bigger subsection, and you can provide a different path. And the content changes immediately. So you can bring in any HTML content in communities, and it's all dynamic and real-time client-side. Moving next to CMS Connect JSON connector demo. For the demo, I'll be bringing in few blocks from a site hosted on WordPress into Salesforce community. So this is a Capricorn blog site which has few blogs related to coffee. And I want to bring this blocks in community for more customer engagement and information sharing. So this is a Salesforce community, and I have brought this blocks from the Capricorn blog site, and this is done using CMS Connect JSON connector. We provide support for two types of content layouts, like content list and content item. Using content list, you can show multiple blog posts in community, and we have pagination support using previous and next. For the content item, you can show the detail of a single blog. For example, clicking on read more opens the detail page for that blog. And we support SEO-friendly navigation from list to the detail page. Now let's see how the setup for it is done. In community workspace, go to CMS Connect and define a connection for it. So this is the connection. Select your CMS source, which is WordPress in this case, and provide the server URL as usual. And there is a separate section called JSON. So click on Add JSON, provide a name for your JSON content, and select the type, whether it's content list or content item, and provide a JSON path. So this JSON path is the JSON endpoint. For example, this is the WordPress REST API way of getting content for the Capricorn site, and put this JSON endpoint in the setup, and that completes the setup part for the connection. So next, go to the builder, and there is a component CMS Connect JSON exposed in the component pane, and you can drag and drop it onto any section of the page where you want to show the JSON content. So here it's added over here, and select the CMS source, which is the Capricorn WordPress in this case, and select the blog JSON content name, and provide a JSON expression for the start node of your content list. For grid layout, provide pagination-related mappings. And now coming to the card layout, so here you need to define a mapping between the Lightning component attributes and the JSON field of the payload. So to do that, go to the JSON viewer of the payload and examine the data. So here you can see that the title data of the blog is mapped to title field of the JSON payload. So come here in the property editor, provide that value, and prepend it with @, which is a convention for telling the data binding provider that it's a JSON expression and not a string or literal. Similarly, you can define other mappings, like for the other fields of the layout, and you're done. Like it completes the setup, and you can bring any JSON content in communities through these simple steps. Yeah, and that covers the demo for CMS Connect. Thanks again for joining the session.
Yeah, I think we have a slide, exactly, yeah. So we have a slide here which just highlights some of the other sessions which are gonna be happening. The ones in orange obviously have not already passed. If you're more interested in some of the declarative stuff that you can do that I just hinted to, the quick session over at the Ridge Theater might be good. It just talks about the builder, goes over an overview of that. There's some tricks on developing components which are specific to communities. We've had a lot of questions about that recently at Dreamforce. Just sort of how do I fork components which were made for CRM? How do I fork them and make them for communities? So yeah, anyway, check it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I forgot to say we have a mic here, so questions.
When you did the HTML content, you hard-coded a reference to the HTML page?
Yeah.
Is it possible to soft-code that? Can you use a variable to get?
Can you repeat the question?
So with the HTML component, when you were embedding the HTML component in, you put a hard-coded reference to the remote site page.
Right.
Is it possible to soft code that? Can you put a variable in there based on some data in the rest of the
So
page?
now we are not supporting the variable thing, but it's there in our roadmap to provide that support.
Okay.
It's now like a hard-coded URL. Thank you for the question.
Hello. Wondering, this might be beyond this talk, but if you can use the audiences and perhaps some of the components and code you showed to make a multilingual experience for communities, such as you have a English page, a Spanish page, a Hindi page, French page. Can you use those? Because these elements be combined to create that experience.
The question is if you can use the audience to have different locales for different languages?
Yeah, if you can do them with audience alone, great, but if you have to combine it with code perhaps, or the templates perhaps?
Yeah, I think that there are definitely use cases for that. So it's kind of, I mean, there's lots, like almost everything in Salesforce. There's tons of different ways to do it. In my theme, I was actually just checking to see if the user is authenticated, but that's probably a better use case for audiences, right? Is just to do that at the audience layer.
Okay.
Yeah, we support localization though out of the box, so I'm not sure if just for language that might be the
Okay,
best.
so you can manipulate content as well with audience? So
Pardon?
content can change with audience as well, the actual page content?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they
so
could do
that's,
the- okay.
well, you can do that with, I talked about component level variation. So whenever that comes out, that would probably be the primary,
Oh, okay.
the primary way to do that there. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Sure.
Is there additional cost for CMS Connect?
No, it's free.
It is, okay. It's
Yeah.
That's good news.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
You should go and try it out.
great news.
Okay, thank you.